You can hit all 7 of these goals that I'm going to talk about in this video in probably the first quarter of 2025. And you just got to know what they are. So we're going to go over all 7 and we're going to line them up and check them off so that you know what you have to accomplish. And the main goal of this really, it's going to be to have more peace of mind that your financial plan is on solid ground and the confidence that you're going to have enough money to get you through to spend freely without worrying about it and live that life that you want to live. So one of the difficult things is that when you're talking about all these things like long-term care planning, what do I do with my investments, taxes, how do we make sure we pass on the maximum amount to our heirs and the people that we care about without losing a bunch of money in the stock market or losing a bunch of money to taxes, it can kind of get overwhelming. And in a decade of helping close to 100 people now really get on the road to retirement, I've learned that a lot of times all these things can just cause stress, which will cause people a lot of times to get analysis paralysis. And that is just where there's so much going on, people sometimes don't take the steps that they need to. So what we're going to focus on is these 7 things and just lining them up and knocking them off so that once you have them all in place, you can just set things on autopilot and go back to living that retirement life that you want to live. So the first one is pretty basic, and it's to transition from that cash management system of somebody who's accumulating their wealth to somebody who's going into retirement. So we'll call it the retirement cash management system. And that's just how do we have enough cash on hand without losing money to like inflation that can cover our expenses and our emergency fund, but without just, again, making Bank of America really happy by sitting on our cash. Well, it's not really doing something for us. By the time you get into or near retirement, you probably have a 401k, an IRA, a Roth IRA, and chances are you have a taxable investment account. So a lot of the clients that I work with come to me with all the qualified or the retirement money, but then they have a checking account with maybe $100,000 in it and another brokerage account where they've been investing over time. And I'll get to the amount of cash that you should have, which will directly relate to goal number 6. And we can talk about how much cash you should have on hand, but really it's going from that emergency fund where, if the roof leaks or a car breaks down or something like that, that emergency fund that you used to have can now be kind of transitioned because we should have enough assets really to cover those emergencies. So it's more about being more efficient with the amount of cash that we're just kind of sitting on and make sure that it can kind of keep up with inflation or do a little bit better while still being liquid enough in order to pay for things that we need. So let's just say this is your old emergency fund sitting in cash. And the way that a lot of pre-retirees will do it is they say, okay, well, if I need $30,000 on hand, that's because, again, if we have a big expense that comes up, we don't want to go into debt to pay for that expense. When we transition from that pre-retirement cash management system to the retirement cash management system, now we typically will have income of, let's say, Social Security and other investments paying in $10,000 per month into here, and let's say our expenses are $10,000 per month. Now, a lot of people would just keep that $30,000 in cash, but when we transition to the retirement cash management system, a lot of times, again, we'll have that brokerage account, and let's say that brokerage account has $250,000 in it. Well, if we still need $30,000 of cash, we can actually have that invested in something that might make 5% per year. And what I tell most of my clients is, look, the feeling of having the safety of having that in your Bank of America account, I love that, and it's there for a purpose. What we can do is make sure we never lose this money, but if you need it, we can turn this from cash and get it back into your bank account within a couple days. And again, in 10 years of doing this, I typically honestly I don't think ever had to cash someone out for that emergency, but over that period of time, we've made hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest that they probably would have otherwise missed out on. So again, the feedback that I've gotten from my happily retired clients is that this is something that both gives them that peace of mind and make sure we don't miss out on some additional interest or things like that, keeping up with the price of inflation. And so the number one thing you can do is just get your cash management system for retirement all settled and working for you. So goal number 2, so you might have heard this before, and if your family's anything like my family, it's something that you may know you need to do, kind of hard to get your hands around, but that's budgeting. So I know how much fun that sounds. I'll actually give you some tools here in a second that will make it really easy to get your hands around. And it's really helpful to take this number 2 step, which is budgeting, because it's going to make some of the future steps a little bit easier. And I'll get into how that works. But again, the point here is to have that peace of mind and confidence, because we have to know what's going out the door. And we have to be able to basically classify it into two different categories. So real quick, it's pretty easy to sign up. Sometimes it's free, sometimes it costs a couple bucks a month, but I mean, the benefits could be tens of thousands of dollars per year. That's budgeting apps. You can just plug them in, they'll connect to your bank accounts, and then you can categorize what's going out. So that's like, you need a budget. There's some from different radio personalities out there. So they pull everything in and they categorize everything. And from there, you can kind of categorize what's a need and what's a want. Because if something gets brought in and it's classified as car payment, mortgage payment, keeping the electricity on, the heat going in the house, or buying food, I would classify it as a need. If you don't have it, bad things can happen. Just like when I pull all my clients' 401ks and IRAs and Roth IRAs and cash and taxable accounts and all that kind of stuff, and we put it under one roof over at Charles Schwab, I've heard from my clients that one of these apps actually is really nice to simplify your life, because it pulls everything together and puts it in one easily digestible piece of information for you to use. So once you have that, we can say, okay, well, we have to eat, but we also want to travel. And so if we're looking for that rate of return of 5 or 6% from your investable assets, if your investments are $1 million and they're going to pay out $60,000 per year, and we know our budget, if the food needs comes out to $4,000 per month, that leaves us with $1,000 per month to take care of those wants. So this also really helps people avoid one of the big retirement mistakes that I found, and that's putting off retirement for too long. So I just brought on board a client who actually went through this, and this helped him to retire because he did his own calculations about a year ago, and I actually talked to him. He filled out one of my retirement quizzes, and we had a quick conversation about, hey, here's potentially what your retirement could look like. We didn't really get detailed, but he took that advice and he downloaded this. He figured out his budget over here, and he knew this budget over here. What he didn't really know at the time was what he could successfully produce off his investments. So he recontacted me this year. We sat back down. When we actually did this math and decided how much money we could safely take from his investments, he realized he could have retired last year. And he was kind of upset that he had some family stuff that he could have really focused on in the last year. So having that solid budget in place is super important for your retirement. That's step number 2. Goal number 3, this is pretty basic. Again, some of those apps or like a good financial plan should be able to really keep track of this for you. And that's just to keep track of your net worth. I mentioned it in another video on why it's so important to keep track of this net worth, because the withdrawal orders for your different accounts and the different taxation and that kind of thing, that can have a big impact on your net worth and how you should withdraw this type of money. But really all we're doing is we're taking our assets, that stuff you have in the bank, we're taking the stuff we owe and we're subtracting that out, and that's gonna give you a net worth. Now, a good solid financial plan with the right tools, hopefully we'll be able to take that net worth, and even with spending, even with money coming out, hopefully we can keep your net worth going up to do things like estate planning, generational wealth, and at the end of the day, just to make you feel more confident knowing that if that number is going up but we're still taking money out, retirement seems like it's on track. So goal number 4 is something I have a lot of conversations about, and that's becoming debt free. Now, why do I have a lot of conversations about it? And why do I have to tell my clients, hey, look, you're asking me something that seems like it has a simple answer, but the answer is actually pretty complex. And that's being debt free. People typically mean no cars, no credit cards, and no mortgage payment. But a lot of my clients took out their mortgages back when the interest rates were near zero. So they might have a mortgage with a 3 or 4% interest rate, and maybe over in their investment accounts, we're making 7 or 8% per year. So then the question really is this conflict between what does the math say, what does the finances say, and what would make me comfortable. I call it left brain, right brain. So the right brain, the spreadsheet might say, well, if we're making 8 and you're only spending 4, then we're netting out, an extra 4% on $1 million mortgage. That could be $40,000 per year. The left brain might say, you know what, I don't want a mortgage. I don't want to make that $4,000 per month payment. And I always kind of tell my clients, there's the math answer, but then there's the sleep at night answer. So if paying off that mortgage, even if we're going to sacrifice a little bit of excess money throughout the year, makes more sense, then that's the right financial decision. But again, that's something that has to be sit down and planned for and taken in the context of all the other investments and liabilities and all of your other goals and things you want to do. Because maybe that extra $40,000 per year could be used for college funding for a grandkid. So goal number 5 is probably one of the most requested pieces of any financial plan that I do for people when they come through my door, whether they come to me because they've been doing it themselves or they have a financial planner who kind of help them get to retirement. In retirement, the number one thing that people want to see is an income plan. And so if you can check this off your box to create an income plan, you're going to go to bed at night knowing where that money is coming from. And what that looks like from a basic standpoint is that if we have $100,000 in cash and inherited IRA with $100,000 more money in the trust, more money in the Roth, the IRA, the pension and Social Security, obviously the income down here is going to be easily calculated because it's what comes into your bank account every month. But if we have a Roth IRA with $1 million in it, what you really need to know in order to accomplish this goal is your distribution rate. So if you're working with standard financial planning, and that's, call it 4%, even though I have another video on here, 4% probably shouldn't be used these days. But if you have $1 million, that should produce about $40,000 a year of income. Now that's tax-free income. That's going to be different than your IRA. That's going to be different than an inherited IRA rules. But as long as you know this number, you should be able to add up all these columns and come up with a pretty solid income plan. If you're looking to maximize that cash flow, or you're looking to minimize those taxes or any of those other considerations, a lot of time working with an actual financial planner who has some more advanced software who can run that kind of thing could be very useful. But if you're just back of the napkin mathing it, then I think that's a totally great way to go. You check off that number 5 goal, which is to come up with that income plan. So number 6, this is kind of the big one. This is where we take all those different factors, your investments, your insurance needs, your cash flow needs, what has to go out, what's coming in, how do we maximize Social Security, how do we maximize pensions, minimize taxes, and kind of ultimately get to number 7, which is coming up. So you can work with a retirement specialist. So that's kind of like you spend your working career is going to your general practitioner if your knee hurts, because if your knee hurts, you're kind of young and you're probably going to be okay. Whereas when you get near to or in retirement, just like if your chest hurts when you're 60, it's different than if you go for a jog when you're 30, you go to see that cardiologist, that specialist. So a retirement income specialist can actually help you maximize the amount of enjoyment you have and the amount of confidence you have that that plan is going to make it all the way through and accomplish all your goals. Now, there's a lot of free online tools that can do this. Some of them are really great. Some of them are only a couple bucks a month. Those are good too. One thing that I've kind of discovered that they lack is some of the more advanced planning features, which really can help pay for themselves. So that's something that looks like this. If we have these hypothetical clients right here that, you know, make it to age 100 with $1.2 million, one of the things that more advanced financial planning can do is come in and say, well, you know, what if we take this withdrawal order and we move that IRA, we move the taxation around, what kind of effect is that going to have on our income? Then we can come out here and see that by moving that withdrawal order, we almost cut that retiree's total net worth in half by the time they pass away at age 100. So those are the type of things that really need to be taken into consideration, along with things like how much does long-term care cost where you live, or what happens if the market fluctuates and goes up and down and takes a big piece of the pie. So again, goal number 6 is to take all those things and put them together in one cohesive plan that you can always refer back to if the market starts to tank, or if taxes change, or if a spouse gets early onset Alzheimer's, or whatever your concern is. You need to have that booklet, that retirement guide that lets you go to bed every night knowing that things are going to be okay in the morning. So number 6, put it all together in a final plan. And number 7 is something that for everything we do by living and working and earning and all the experiences we have, it becomes more and more important to make sure that the people we leave behind are taken care of. And one of the comments that I get most frequently from people about their estate planning is, I don't want there to be any fights. I don't want there to be any ill will or bad feelings among the people that I'm leaving behind. I have a client right now whose brother and sister kind of don't want to sell the old family house, but we have to in order to take care of mom. So I'm helping him navigate that. So number 7 is to make sure your wills, your trusts, your estate plan, if you're a high net worth individual, especially like here in the state of Washington, you want to make sure that your state taxes are taken care of. There's a lot of strategies that you can use to really minimize, to convert taxable money into non-taxable or tax-free money. If any of this has resonated with you or you like it, just go ahead and hit the like button so that I know that this is the type of video you want to see more of. If you have any questions or you want to get a handle around your personal retirement plan, there's a couple links with some quizzes you can take. And when I have time to get to it between managing all my clients, I'll try and respond to it. But other than that, I hope you found something helpful. If you want to take it to your financial planner, maybe it'll give you a little bit better financial life. Take care.